Hello, everyone, and welcome to my war journal. Today is November 7th here in Israel. I think where Micha is, it's still November 6th. This is the 32nd day of the war that started October 7th. And today I'm joined here with Micha Breakstone, a really good friend of mine. We started off as colleagues. He was actually my boss. But since then, much much has transpired, and we were really close friends. And Micha is an entrepreneur. He resides in Texas, near Austin, at least as far as I know. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, Micha. And I really wanted to meet with him because to hear first of all what it's like over there, what it's like from a in terms of the pro-Israel activities that he's been part of, like many Jews around the world, and also to hear what it's like, in terms of how he experienced the past month, and specifically what it's like to be as a Jew in these places during these trying times. So, Micha, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Alicia, for having me. Indeed, live in Austin, actually, in Austin, Texas, and just I don't know if correction, but you said if I started out as colleagues or managing you, I'll just have to add that if I was your manager, you were my mentor. So just to reciprocate.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
still are in many regards. And also, you tricked me because we were speaking kind of in Hebrew, and now I have to transition to this odd language that I at these hours of the day. It's almost 11 p.m. So still, indeed, November 6th for the next 34 minutes. And finally, I do a lot of these. I've done multiple podcasts over the last couple of years, but I don't think I've ever done one with someone I'm so close with. So I feel very privileged to be here, and need to separate between Alicia, my very good friend, and Alicia, the podcaster. So I'll do my best. But thank you for having me.
Sure, my pleasure. I think you know me well enough to know that there's very little difference between those two people. Um, yeah. Yeah, so Micha, I mean, maybe we can start from like from October 7th. I mean, I don't know. As I mentioned a lot of times, and when I ask these people this, I'm religious, so I didn't find out anything. I know that there was a lot of fog of war in the first day or two, anyway. But the first day, I didn't know almost anything. We were feeding off rumors here and there because we couldn't listen to the news. And I wanted to know first, so for you, like how did things evolve? I mean, the rocket launchers that started this whole thing happened here at like 6 a.m. So it must have been late at night on your side. I'm guessing you only began hearing anything in the morning when you woke up the day after.
No. So interesting. I'll first, if it's okay, I just want to ask you a question. So
Sure.
you obviously heard people around you that something was happening on Shabbat, right? Like so, and it's not considered pikuach nefesh to open up a radio. I mean, radio is Yom Kippur War, but I'm just thinking it's like you guys didn't open TV or anything. It was
Well, basically, what happened was that there were. It started off, of course, the phase one was there being, the sirens in the morning.
mhm.
That has happened before, so that itself was not reason to put on a radio because we figured we go into the safe room, we'll be there for a while, we'll leave.
Mhm.
Then excuse me, then in the day we walked to the synagogue, and people do find out bits and pieces of what's happening by the time you get there, because people have neighbors, that are not religious and do have the radio on, etc. Some people had, I'm guessing, I don't know specifically, but some people had children that were drafted, very soon after. So we knew that something big was happening. Um, but we didn't have a sense of exactly how bad. Like we knew that there were some abductees, some hostages. We heard that there was an attack on Sderot. That was basically sort of what I understood. And we understood that we needed to be careful, so we stayed home. We didn't, after the davening, we went home, stayed home, and sort of waited. figuring that, if anything really bad happened, there would be more sirens, right? So that we didn't need to worry about our own. I don't live. If I was living closer to the borders, one of the borders, I'm sure that I would have behaved differently. Since I live in the center of Israel, and the main threat here is rockets, and for rockets there are sirens, so I didn't feel like there was any need to do anything beyond that. But even if there was slightly more dangerous than that, I would have put on my phone and I would have checked it from
Mm-hmm.
a strict, this is not the topic of the podcast, but from a strict
Yeah.
Jewish, like Orthodox law standpoint, putting on your cell phone is not such a terrible thing. If there's a risk of something, you can even do it. So, but it felt like something we've been through, just more intense, not what
Mm-hmm.
it is, which
Yeah.
is something
The horror.
way beyond anything that we have ever experienced. So,
Yeah. Thank you for
yeah,
sharing. I didn't even think
sure,
about that. I haven't been in Israel for a long time now, so it's, a lot of my family is in Israel. My my mom, my dad, my sisters.
sure.
Uh,
The people that had it even more difficult in this regard were the American Jews, because in America you keep 2 days. So
yeah.
they actually were offline for 48 hours, which were the most critical
Also,
48 hours.
Sunday was also a Yom Tov.
That's right. It's a
I didn't
double
get
day, because it wasn't just a Sabbath, it was
double whammy.
Simchat Torah.
You get to
So
eat
that
for.
means that for
That's
48
why
hours they were
the
feeding
Jews
off
are so much
rumors.
bigger, huh? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
right. So that's what
uh,
that. So yes, indeed, there were a lot of Orthodox Jews were completely, let's just
insane,
feeding off rumors. Yeah,
insane.
yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I was actually I headed to the gym late at night, like wife and daughter were sleeping, and I just went to the gym, and I often listen to I to some news on the way there. It's interesting. I usually don't go to the gym. I usually we have a gym at home, but I decided to go to a local gym here that's open 24/7. And remember, I listened to the news. I think it was, I guess, my 11 p.m. I guess, and they were starting to talk about like noises coming from it, but it didn't sound anything really interesting. I mean, it was just weird that there was like the first or second item in the news, but didn't pay too much attention to that. Went, did my workout, and an hour and a half back, on the way back, I listened, and it's still the top news, and that's a bit odd. So opened my phone past midnight, and that's already 9 a.m. and something's going on, right? So I don't remember the exact time I went to sleep, but probably not before 4 or 5 a.m. Like, because as
Oh,
information is coming in, and I think moving a little forward in the conversation, I think the thing that is most kind of the thing that is, other than the feelings that you're engulfed in over the last month, one of the things that is really affected is your ability to focus and span of attention, and this need for continuous information all the time. And this is not only me, I think it's everybody, right? You just can't
sure.
detach from the freaking internet and what's the next, like it's just like. So I remember the first night I didn't go to sleep before 4 or 5 a.m. I don't remember the exact time, and I wasn't able to sleep a lot. I don't remember, I may be factually a bit off, but this is I'm sharing my emotional
Sure,
memory, so I
sure.
apologize if the facts aren't perfect. But if I remember correctly, I was basically able to sleep only 3 or 4 hours and got up just just of the tension of what was actually happening, and reading it, and then basically just a continuous horror for days and days and days. I think on Monday or Tuesday we decided to hold. Sorry, you wanted to ask something, or yeah. On Monday or Tuesday, I decided together with two friends here to hold a Kabbalat Shabbat in Austin
Monday or
for
Tuesday, like the week after,
no
or
2 or 3 days after.
uh-huh. Because
So um, decided, like, people here were rattled, obviously, as the numbers kept growing. I don't know if you remember, but the first few days, like every few hours, another 100 would, the toll would
yeah,
rise. But it's like
right.
insane. It was just it was unfathomable. I mean, it was just completely. like it wouldn't grow by dozens. And by that point, we knew it was like when you see the numbers raising by 100 each time, you know that this isn't ending anytime soon, right? This is not a rounding error.
Yeah, I
And
remember trying to explain to my kids that I mean, obviously a lot of the details, we shielded from them, but definitely at the beginning when there was so much unknowns. But I remember trying to explain to my kids that it's not that they have to feel like every hour, again, we're talking like 48 hours afterwards, that every hour, another 100 people are dying. It's that we're discovering,
yeah,
things that had happened, but it was still so shocking.
interesting. Remind me, Aaron is your son?
I have 4 kids, and my oldest is 18. And he's currently in the yeshiva in Gush Etzion, in the Anet Aaron, and then my other kids are 15, 13, and 10.
Yeah, for some reason, Aaron is stuck with me at the age of 13 because you told me a story
Of
of his bar
course.
mitzvah. So, and I didn't realize that 5 years passed. So I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
wait, how do they even
yeah,
know the numbers? Because, like, so that's what I was asking.
yeah.
Um,
A lot of what took up my energy was, helping my kids stay stable.
yeah. Um, yeah. So, um, I think you know, Alicia, but my wife is pregnant. You know that, right? No.
Yes.
Okay, good. It wasn't. So, trying to shield her also
Right, stress, of
from
course.
stress. And there was a lot of stress. We decided in Austin to pull together and do a Kabbalat Shabbat at our home. We have a beautiful home where we can host many people. So we had 60 people over here. I
Hmm.
ordered like a huge amount of food
And
and
these
did
are
it.
all part of the Jewish community?
Yeah, well, Jews and honorary Jews, I'll say it that way.
Okay,
So part
sure.
of um, the so I founded a kind of a group of entrepreneurs here in Austin. I call it the ATX TLV Club, Austin, Texas, and Tel Aviv Club of Entrepreneurship. Connecting or bridging between Austin and Tel Aviv
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, and so about 40 or 50 entrepreneurs, and then another layer of um, top execs, and we open ourselves up also to people that are supportive of Israel. And there was, I think that evening there were 60, probably 35, 40 were Israelis, and then a few Jews that are not
And
Israeli, and then
and the point of this was to foster like a sense of community and like
Yes,
togetherness.
we have a sense of community, but the language I used was a sense of beyachad. People were
Hmm.
alone, like really alone. And you did your PhD abroad, and you probably, I mean, you're Orthodox, so you probably had an intimate community of Orthodox Jews around you. For non-Orthodox Jews, it's much harder to have that community organically. So we kind of created it. It's a beautiful evening. It's actually the first time I ever saw my wife do Hadlakat Nerot. So I've never seen her before doing that.
Wow.
Yeah, because we don't light or yeah
Hmm.
we
Sure.
haven't lit candles, and it's very beautiful, very touching. Uh, Made sure that two people were armed or had guns. It's Texas, so it's a
I think you
it's
had to make
known
sure
to be a
that
market
two people
environment.
weren't armed. Yeah,
Yeah, but
probably.
like no, we blocked our driveway so that nobody could come in a. Is quite. It was yeah. It was good to be together as I shared kind of before we started the podcast, that kind of overlaid or um, overlapped with a personal loss of our family. We lost, I mean, huge difference, but we lost our dog that day. We didn't know that we lost her, but we knew she was gone for 24 hours at that time. So we were a little absent-minded, worried,
For sure.
like extremely worried. And I remember feeling like if this is how I feel, not knowing where my dog is, thinking of the thousands and thousands of parents not knowing what happened to their children. And I mean, it was just devastating to feel that way. And but going back to your question, so I found out over the radio, and I think it's crazy to say, but for the last month, it just feels like a frenzy of like a steaming channel of information coming in. Not really, I'm thinking back, a whole month passed, right? Like literally a whole month. It feels like days, like the time hasn't stopped. I've slept much less. It's just a whole range of feelings that I'm not used to, and reckoning, like also with myself. I'm a proud liberal, I'll say, or that's the language that they use in the U.S., or Smolani in Hebrew,
Right.
leftist. But re-examining not the basic tenets of what it means, but what you know what others mean by it sometimes, and what your level of acceptance of what happens on the other side. So I find myself speaking like like I don't want to say like the worst of the fascists, but like um, really like horrifically, and having thoughts that I never thought I'd have. Going to
a joint friend of ours, a fellow named Noam. I won't mention his
wait,
last.
Arnon.
Our Noam, yes, our
Okay, I
Noam.
know him.
So you know that he's, he has also like a very strong, sarcastic, cynical bent. So, and they, no, but the one thing that he wrote to me as we were chatting about this after a few days, he said to me, and again, this is of course cynical and dark humor. The black humor is how we cope. But he wrote to me, sentences you never thought you'd say. In general, I'm against killing people indiscriminately, but yeah, you know,
Yeah.
um,
So yeah,
yeah,
I mean, you kind of like, yeah. I mean, I don't even want to repeat that, but yes,
of
those are
course.
thoughts that come across, and
And I'm just making clear to my listeners because I know that today any little clip somebody shares now will claim that the Jews are out for genocide. So I mean it as an emotion, right? You
yeah,
you get a sense of
thank
being
you.
attacked
Yes,
on all sides by monsters, and you're
yeah.
like, okay, so what option are you giving me? One of the just to like go on what you were talking about the liberals, which I want to hear more from you. One of the things that kept on coming back for me was that if you have you ever watched the movie The Dark Knight?
What is that, Batman or something
Yeah,
else?
yeah.
No.
If you watch that movie, you'll Heath Ledger, who at the time who committed suicide soon after, he played the Joker, and he played the Joker very very convincingly. I'm just mentioning the suicide because some people relate the two, like because the if you're looking for escapism that will also help you process some of what that feeling was, like that feeling is, it's that because what Batman basically faces with the Joker is telling him through his terrorism and everything that you can defeat me, but only if you become like me.
Hmm.
And that's the struggle that he puts before Batman. It's like you can beat me, but you'll have to be as evil as I am or as ruthless as I
Hmm.
am if you
Yeah,
want to do that.
yeah, yeah,
And that's, I think,
yeah.
what you're
It's,
talking about, right? Like, I'm a
yeah,
liberal.
yeah.
I know what that means.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I mean, look, it's also, I mean, look, I'm all over the place now. I'm not focused on something specific. You asked me to kind of describe how the events unfolded, and
Yeah. So you know what? Maybe I'll try to keep us more on track. So
yeah, yeah,
just like if you give me the highlights of what went on since then
yeah.
till now, and
So
in terms of also the feeling of support from around you and the kinds of activities you're doing.
yeah, so I'll kind of speak in shorter sentences, and feel free to navigate me if
Sure.
you want. So yeah, I found out late Friday night for us. Was up most of or a lot of the night. Got up, didn't sleep a lot, and then again a whole week of just basically not, of digesting news. Uh, uh, and had this Kabbalat Shabbat, which was really beautiful. But as I shared, kind of the family loss at the same time. some of the most amazing people came over. I think I shared with you before we started. Sky, a good friend of mine from Sderot, 50 of his people had
I've been murdered.
yeah, and so yeah, it was just it was really really bad. I think I actually, now that I think about it, I think I actually flew out on Saturday somewhere. I'm pretty sure I flew out to California on Saturday for like the day right after. Yeah, I did for 2 days. I forgot about that. Now I remember. Yeah, I flew. It's funny how memory plays tricks on you. I was out in California at this gorgeous, gorgeous resort. I think the most beautiful resort I know on the Pacific Ocean. And I had ordered this place for me and my wife and our daughter. Like it was this conference, but like because I knew my family was coming with me, I had upgraded to this beautiful suite with overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And I remember like I went back like a day after Veronica, my wife and my daughter stayed there another day, and I just, yeah, now I remember it's like insane. I completely wiped that out, completely erased that part. Like it was just like the most serene, beautiful, mesmerizing place in the world, and like war. Came back to Austin, was here for a day myself. Events continued to unfold. Had the Kabbalat Shabbat the Saturday after, Sunday after, sorry. So Saturday, had 7 of my friends come over and search for our dog with me. Horrible, like feeling we found her not alive.
Right.
Yeah, so that kind of helped bring things, help
Closer
make.
to home.
Yeah, help. Yeah, I think Leonard Cohen has a beautiful line. He says, "Everybody knows that broken feeling, like your father or your dog just died." So it's a pain that doesn't have any words, and it's very hard. And also, you feel stupid feeling the pain because of the immeasurable pain that is happening around. That it's also a way of connecting. Sunday, we kind of picked ourselves up. We went to this rally, pro-Israel rally. It was highly secured, and yet I was standing there with my wife and my baby, and there were a few bicyclists that drove by and started screaming at us, "This is what you get for genocide," right? And this is Austin, which is highly, highly liberal. Well, highly, not liberalism, but like pluralistic and very, like you don't really see violence here, and people are kind and nice and warm. So that was terrible. I remember I ushered my wife and baby into the crowd. Like it was just like, that's where it hit me that we're not safe. Like I didn't even think
Wow.
about it before.
So this was
Uh,
already how many days after?
this is exactly 8 or 9 days after, right? So this is
Wow.
sort of 15th, 8 days after.
Yeah. Wow.
Um,
How many people were at this pro-Israel
I don't know
like
exactly. It felt
rally?
like maybe 200 or
Okay.
so.
Sure.
That's what it
And you felt it
felt.
was mainly Jewish people, Israelis, or
Mainly
was it
Jewish,
also the
mainly
honorary Jews, as you mentioned?
mainly Jewish, not all Israeli. Some friends of ours that are not at all Jewish came, which was really touching. I didn't realize, it was actually overwhelmingly touching to see them there, like beautiful, beautiful, beautiful to see them there. And then there was a few speakers got on stage that were definitely not Jewish. So the leader of the Ukrainians in Austin got up and spoke, and she spoke absolutely beautifully, like amazing, like it was really touching.
Wow.
Um, not focusing on their death and their side, but just saying we know what you're going through and we're with you. Like really
Yeah.
moving, like to tears.
You
Just
know
like
that
an,
yesterday I saw, speaking about Austin, yesterday I saw that there were, I don't know how many, but apparently, you know, that Israel right now, the people in the south lost a lot of their workers because a lot of the,
mm,
either, of course, first of all, it's hard
yeah,
to
or
work the
cowboys
fields.
coming out
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yeah. Cowboys from Austin, I think, and from Montana and from Nebraska, I think,
yeah,
and maybe
makes
others.
sense.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. And the in all the darkness that surrounds us, the
Yeah.
kindness of some individuals that just
Oh, it's amazing.
see and connect on a human level is
Yeah.
astounding.
last night we were at this ADL conference or talk, and there was this, I don't know what else to use, but righteous Gentile. I don't know what else to say. Like she
Yeah,
was a devout Christian, and she was talking about like the, you know, the the debt that Christians owe the Jews and the unforgivable silence of 70 or 80 years ago, and never again, we will never again be silent. It was just really moving, like really,
yeah,
really moving. Um,
yeah.
at the same time, there are these primordial feelings because you feel that you hate Muslims, which is a feeling that I don't like to have, um, especially when you see these amazing accounts or of I think I saw these three Bedouins that risked their lives and saved 30 or 40 Israelis, like
Yeah,
risking their lives. Some were killed. So it's like it's very like under stress, you're automatically there's good and evil, there's us and not us, right? There's left and right, whatever. It's just you try to so I try not to fall into those very very basic
I think you mean
emotions.
base, very
Yeah,
base.
yeah, yes, they're base, but I meant basic like in primordial, like hiuli, like
Sure,
uh
very raw.
yes, sorry.
It's very raw.
Yeah, very raw, very very raw.
Yeah,
um
and I think in general, one of the things which I think also has basis in research, etc. Like that the people that are more liberal tend to also be more, let's say, intellectual, right, in the way that they analyze things. They tend to be more detached, in terms of their analysis of things. And then, I mean, I'm an intellectual, like I consider myself to be, like that, and I know that everything gets processed for me. I'm very sensitive. It doesn't mean I'm not sensitive or connected, but I feel that everything gets processed that way, and I can feel myself like, every time I touch a little bit some of the stories, some of those things, I feel this terrible either rage or pain, and it's very hard to process, and you're just, because we're facing something so, and my brain, I can feel my brain, and I was telling this to somebody yesterday, I can feel my brain trying to explain away what has happened,
yeah,
trying to say it can't be that bad. It can't be like it because it doesn't make sense. But
yeah,
but it did. But it did happen.
yeah. I've you know also on a personal level, I have not become desensitized. So on the contrary, like in the beginning, it was easier for me to watch the raw footage. I've weaned myself. I'm just not watching it like for weeks and weeks and weeks. I just haven't been able
Me
to.
too. Me too.
Um, yeah. So that's kind of the.
Right.
Yesterday we were at a march for Israel as well in the afternoon. Um, this time I asked myself three times if I want to go before or not, just for the safety of my family and my wife. She's, a Soviet Jew. She said, if you're afraid now, you'll live your whole life in fear. I was like, no, if I'm
Right.
afraid now, maybe we'll save ourselves. It's like, it doesn't mean, so that was kind of but we went and it was very safe, zero bad incidents. But I will say, like, we were wearing these shirts of Pro Israel, and my daughter was very thirsty, so I walked into this restaurant to order something, and I was super self-conscious of me walking into this place with
For
a shirt
sure.
on.
For
And
sure.
the moment we left, I asked, my wife to take off the flag of Israel that she had scarfed around her, so it was, yeah, it's scary. And
So let's
um,
let's talk really about that from two angles. First of all, I know that you were part of a big push. You're connected to a lot of entrepreneurs, people that are from Israel, people that some of them have had very good fortunes in the past in terms of like financially. So like, tell me a little bit about the. I'm sure that one of the things you've been doing at the beginning was, I know that, not just sure, I know that one of the things you were doing at the beginning and maybe still are doing is helping with some of the philanthropy surrounding helping out. So what's been going on there?
yeah, so the first week or so, 10 days, I was working like really hard to try and get monies to Israel from non-traditional sources, from like non-Jews, basically from righteous Gentiles. there are different mechanisms of doing that in the U.S. You have to set up, I forget, it's called a 501c3 or maybe I'm misremembering the exact abbreviation, but like basically you want to make sure that every dollar they give is tax
Tax
deductible,
deductible, of
right? And if
course.
you're not able to do that, then like people will not give, and it's crazy how difficult it is to do that. It's like really hard.
Hmm.
You can use a different entity to do it, but basically we failed. That's the bottom line. And so instead, I focused on vetting what resources were what donations were actually real because I had given money. So yeah, Varnika and I gave more money this last month than we have in our entire lives previously. So won't say the number, but
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
um,
Yeah.
quite significant. I was actually motivated by not only by so I have some friends who are ultra high net worth that were giving seven figures, which was insanely like moving.
Yeah.
They're wealthy people, but still like the way they move to to donate and the causes, etc. So it was really, really moving. I don't know who listens to this. I don't know if to say their names or not,
I
or
don't think you should say. I think you
yeah,
should leave it like that. I
yeah,
think
but like
matan basetel,
yeah,
giving, and that's it's their
yeah,
thing.
but just really inspiring and kind of inspired me and my wife to give more than we had thought initially,
Hmm.
and making sure that the money was going to the right place. It's really difficult to know where. Like
For
we gave in
sure.
the beginning, we gave money to whatever that I'm sure was squandered on, Fodim
Yeah.
Keramim that weren't even let into Israel, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we decided and then just to give to children, basically to children and families. So that's where we gave, and um, uh, what else?
Right. And in terms of like when so you talked about trying to get like people that are
Yeah,
not Jewish people to be able to give. In terms of so that implies that there were people there, the righteous Gentiles, or like however you call them, that were like interested in helping and
oh yeah,
giving
yeah,
and
yeah, 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 yeah. So 100% yes. So it's kind of a second circle to me. I'm not like what I did is so I have a few friends who are ultra high net worth who are close with, billionaires, to
yeah,
and um, um, being able to just reach out and not only for money, but actually also for impact. So I don't know if you know, but the governor of Texas is now in Israel, or at least was yesterday in Israel.
oh
Yeah, so just a huge amount of I have to say Texas is like the people here are very warm and very pro-Israel overall. So that's why I was so like, but you also, you know, it's enough, it's enough to have a few crazies and that they come up like I think a few days ago there was a guy, a Jordanian Palestinian that was arrested in Houston for planning an attack. So I'm scared. I'm really scared. Like I won't go around with anything that shows that I'm Jewish. I'll give you an example from today. We live in a gated community, so I usually feel safe. But the what's it called, the USPS, I guess, or
yeah, U.S.
UPS,
Postal
UPS
Service,
one.
yeah,
I don't know. I think it was a USB, like a private whatever. So the driver
sure,
came and asked, and then I was consulting somebody on the phone, and he heard me speak in Hebrew, and he asked me, "Where are you from?" And I immediately reacted. I immediately responded from Israel because that's why am I? Then
for
afterwards, I
sure,
was like, "Oh my God, the guy actually, looks Middle Eastern. He had an accent. I'm not comfortable. Like I'm
yeah.
not like it's um not
Had you ever felt this way in America before?
no, never, no, never. When I was a teenager once, before I had met any African American in my life, I remember getting off at what's it called? One of the Grand Central Station. I remember a few huge African Americans approached me and asked to help me move my suitcases, and I was sure they were going to steal them, right? But this was because I was completely. That's the only time I
Right.
was scared, right? I was
Yeah, you
like
didn't know, of
14 years
course.
old, and I was alone. I didn't know. It was just foreign to me. But I've never felt ever that I can't share that I'm a Jew and that that I'm not proud to be Israeli, etc. So no, this is a very new feeling for me. And I'll say a sentence that is haunting me. Yesterday, when we were at the Anti-Defamation League meetup, one of the people that was hosting said, "Look, he was born. His mom was born like a few days after his grandmother arrived in the U.S. having fled from Poland, and um, uh, they watched as the Holocaust happened, and a question that he grew up with was why were Americans silent, and more so, why did the American jury not speak up and demand and do? And he said, you know what? We're now the American jury that needs to speak up. Like, this is on us. We need to make noise and we need to demand. And that is happening very strongly here. So at least in Texas, I have to say, I'm very not involved in politics day to day here, but the governor is in Israel now. People have been speaking out. More so, there was one of my good friends here was invited to speak with Martin Luther King the third, I think, like the son of, and
Yeah,
he made this amazing speech in front of the Black College of in Austin here, and like so very warmly received. But again, you know, you just don't know, right? You just don't know. And again, at the beginning, you don't realize. I remember we were having ice cream at this place, and I heard this language, and I was like really strange. Like I was out of curiosity, what language is it? Turkish? And then they asked, "So where are you from?" "Israel." And their response was actually really nice. I said, "Oh wow, good luck." That was their answer. Right? I
good
mean,
luck.
to their defense, their English was broken, but in retrospect, their response was really nice. I mean, given their very broken English, that
For
was the
sure.
best they could do. But just thinking about the fact that I need to now, I can't respond automatically anymore. I just won't be willing to do that.
Right. So that's like the element of there's like a reactive element, right? You're put in a position which you never imagined you would be in, that you didn't ask to be put in. Um, and I think one of the things that keeps on like coming up for a lot of people, whether I think for a lot of people it's maybe for many people it's not they don't verbalize it, but I think one of the major things that's going on for people like deep inside themselves is that especially people that saw themselves as citizens of the world, as like as more liberal, right? People that are people that are more right wing tend to be more nationalistic. People that are more left wing tend to be like more like international and like open to the rest of the world. The question of what does it mean, like why is there anti-Semitism, right? Anti-Semitism is this thing that crops up that tells you that you can't escape your your particular identity, right? Just 1 second, my son is calling. Hey
Sure.
Alan, can I call you back in a little bit later? I'm just in the middle of talking to somebody. Sure, bye. Yeah, so I'm wondering, like, do you get a sense, whether from yourself, from your wife, from the people around you, from other people in the community, that there's also like this I don't know, is there like an element of you know it's almost like you're being forced to embody that Jewishness that these other people have decided to target. What is that like? Or maybe you're not even at the point that you're processing that, but
I don't know. Look, I've always had a very strong Jewish identity, right? I'm not
right.
Orthodox. I'm
Oh no,
very,
I know, of
very,
course.
very
Yeah,
connected to my Jewish heritage,
I
to
remember, of course.
to tradition. I fast on Yom Kippur. I don't eat bread on Pesach, although pitot I sometimes consider to be okay because they haven't
Yeah, everybody draws the line where they do.
right. But like, I've never considered myself even remote. Like, some Jews are just Jews by name. I actually feel deeply proud of being Jewish, and deeply proud of the ethics what Jewry has brought to the world, of the energies that thousands of years, millennia of Jewish traditions have brought to the world and have brought to us. As so I never felt defined by others, but defined by myself. But for the first time ever, I feel deeply that anti-Semitism is real, like very real. I don't think people are necessarily evil, but like, I do think that the world, for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, has kind of cultivated this anti-Jewry or anti-Semitism, or I don't know if hate or fear or envy, and it's now propping up. And I feel that it was subliminal, but it is very, very real. And you see this also coming from, I blocked my first person ever, I think, on Twitter the other day was Paul Graham. Was a very famous, like, he's a genius. He's like one of the smartest people in tech, period. And I grew up as an entrepreneur on his writings, which were amazing and insightful. And it's like, I felt like it's like, you can't listen to Wagner's music. You cannot follow this guy. I mean, the guy is he won't say he's anti-Semite. He'll say a lot of my best friends are Jewish, etc., etc. But I mean, there's no other way to. I mean, this isn't anti-Zionism or anti-Israeli. I think there is an orthogonal path, neurological path, that has nothing to do with rational processing. It has to do with this primordial emotions, feelings, and I feel hating Jews or feeling that Jews' blood is cheaper is very, very real. And I'm scared. I'm scared for my family.
Yeah.
I think today, for the first time, I've thought about, we left Israel 2 years ago, about what it would mean to go back to Israel, actually. Like,
Yeah.
and I remember having this discussion with a friend of mine who, is another entrepreneur, about 2 or 3 months ago. And I told him, look, I won't mention names, but hey, if there was an Israel, there would be another Holocaust within a generation. That's our
Right.
50 years. It's,
Yeah. There's the quote by, which is a more general quote, which I think I mentioned on this podcast before, but which has been echoing through my mind a lot. Ronald Reagan, and I think in his 1984 inauguration speech, he was just talking about democracy in general. It wasn't about anything more dramatic than just the transfer of power in a peaceful way. But what he said was, he said, we take this thing called liberty and freedom for granted. But the truth is that freedom is always only one generation away from being lost. And every generation has to fight for their freedom again, to make sure that it's transferred to the next generation. Because once you lose it, it's gone.
yeah,
And I really feel that. I feel like this is a moment where the West, in general, it's a fight for the West soul. It's like, what is acceptable. I think one of the things that is happening now, and is because this is such a long process, because it's weeks of fighting, and that means weeks of protests and weeks of pro and anti-Israel things that are going on, and weeks of anti-Semitism. You have this thing in Harvard and all the Ivy Leagues, and suddenly normalizing anti-Semitic sentiment, etc. People can't just ignore it anymore. It's right there in front of them. It's going on for a while. It's going to continue going on for a while, and that's why it's you can't just say, oh, it's just a blip on the screen. It almost never happens. It's an outlier. And so it's a battle for the West soul. I think first and foremost America, because I think America is the biggest bastion of free speech. Much more than Europe has always been. I mean, First Amendment, etc. And for Europe, I mean, that's way beyond, like, late for them to wake up and figure out. How do you make sure to really stand? They have to find their identity again, and what are the values they're willing to fight for?
100%, 100%. And, the fight for the West, the real question is what is the West and what are the values? Like, what is liberty? What is freedom? And when does it become just hypocrisy
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's well, I mean, yeah, one another thing that goes to my mind a lot is the way in which like in the book 1984 by George Orwell. So
who
there's a
one of
lot
our
of
friends translated.
who one of our friends translated, and beautiful. I actually bought the book so that I'd have the translation. Um, but there's this whole idea that appears a lot of how you can mold words to mean whatever you want them to mean, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and 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 I think I forget what it was, but is it like slavery is freedom or so? I forget like what those transitions are. And I think that's part of what it is, right? Where people, like you said, people are using a lot of the words of the West in order to attack what we would consider to be the deeper values of the West.
yeah.
Um, like the Geneva, Israel is being accused of war crimes. Israel is actually working very much in accordance with international law from everything we know, way beyond what international law says.
Yeah.
International law says that if put yourself, if you embed yourself within a civilian population and then you attack, then you're responsible for that. So that means
Yeah.
Hamas is 100% responsible. We can, in principle, carpet bomb Gaza if that's what we needed to do. And we're going to all these lengths of moving people out of their homes and protecting them, etc., and nobody on
No, and
the
putting our own
far
soldiers
left
in harm's
cares.
way, and putting our own soldiers in harm's way, which is really the terrible part,
Exactly.
right? That's where for me is you know that's I mean, how do you measure like I mean, if I had to choose one of our soldiers versus one of their child, I would choose my soldier, our soldier, or our children. But
Right.
do you wait? How do you measure one against 10, one against 5? How do you measure that? Like, how do you
Yeah, it's
measure?
also the thing. I wanted to ask you just one last thing,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna wrap it up with that, which is like, is there anything else you feel that you'd like to share that we haven't touched upon?
Um, yeah, I think, look, I want to say I'm very proud to be Jewish. I think you talked about flexibility or what words can mean. I think I've found that my own borders are changing. Like I was used to be like, I can't talk with this guy. I can't believe they voted whatever Trump, like whatever. I find that things are kind of actually more complex. So I found that easier for me to see points of view that were harder for me to see again because I'm moving between them, right? I'm suddenly seeing myself uh, harboring emotions that I didn't think I would. So yeah, I also share one other emotion. So I think I spoke about the deep grief. I spoke about the fear for my family. I didn't speak about the rage, which is consuming. For me, a lot of the rage is against the people that brought us to our knees. It's and the deep lack of responsibility and the feeling that we deserve, like we have. I have immense pride in us as a nation and what we're doing as a people. I feel that we deserve better leadership and
For sure, for
the
sure.
terrible, terrible, terrible notion of feeling betrayed by our own leaders, basically.
Yeah,
That's a rage that is I know is just is I guess it's an easier emotion to process than the grief and the fear. So rage is a lot of my day is rage.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
think there, there's there's a book about Churchill that talks about how what Churchill did. Like the person that wrote the book had very very good turn of phrase for prose, and he said that basically Churchill came and helped remind the British people who they were. Yeah. And I was telling my father that here it's the opposite. It's like the people, the leaders, like
yeah,
had failed. It was the people that Rand Barthes was a right wing columnist. Ran Baratz. So he wrote, like, soon after, like, when things began to clarify, he said, at the place where the state had failed and completely crumbled, the people of the country rose up
Amazing
and
people from across all spectrum. I just, yeah, a good friend of mine recently commented there was a great piece in The Economist, and he said I was pleasantly surprised because The Economist is usually liberal leaning by them. I said, omitting his name, I said, this is not, left and right. There is no left and right. There is good and there's evil. Just like in World War II, it wasn't left against right. And whoever doesn't realize this is good against evil is either stupid or evil themselves.
right,
And
right,
yeah. And
yeah.
Misha, thank
Well,
you
thank you.
for letting me
Sure.
share
Yeah,
and kind of, I guess, unwind and for listening and for asking and for
that's
caring.
part of what this is all about. Yeah. So thank you, Micha, and as things evolve and as you evolve, like, I'll be happy in a few weeks to do this again and see where things stand.
Hopefully, things will be in a much, much, much better place by then.
Hopefully, hopefully. Okay, we're gonna say goodbye, and then you and I will talk offline. But thank you, people, for joining, and thank you, Micha. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.